God gives us a model of fatherhood and how he looks at his children, how he treats his children, how he disciplines his children. He gives us the most effective model you could ever be, you could ever have. So I'm just so thankful that he got me at a young age, and he didn't let me go. He didn't let me be a victim of my statistics or my demographic. And he got a hold of me young, and I know that he went to the furthest extent to reach us. Yeah. And again, that puts in you as a father, as a man, that puts in you a whole new mandate. Yeah. That's a whole new level. Like the God of the universe became flesh and went to a cross. He humbled himself even to death, and to prove to you that he is who he says he is, and he believes full-heartedly in you. That'll change your life for sure, especially as a dad.
Hey man, you want to talk about God? How you feeling, Bren?
I'm nervous.
What exactly are you nervous about?
You guys have a great platform, and I listen to it all the time. It's reached me in ways I didn't think it would, in ways that I actually, to be honest, kind of fought on some issues.
Can you define that? Like, what do you mean?
Things that I wasn't willing to admit in myself, that I had to hear somebody else say it. I had to hear one of you guys say it, one of my close friends say it, for it to mean something. And yeah, so you guys have a great platform, and yeah, I can't say enough about it.
Yeah. What I love about like episodes like this, and I think guests like you, is like this whole podcast, this platform, like was built around having normal conversations that we would have. And you are one of those people, like I've shared with you, that like probably had the same experience though, like that we've had those long nights on the porch in a basement and just like going through what's going on in our heads, what we're dealing with in the moment in life. You have been one of those people that has celebrated highs with me, and you've been there when I'm getting the news that takes you low. Yeah. And so to be able to have I feel like just inviting another friend into the conversation. So I feel like whatever we record, who knows where we'll go exactly, but this will be a representation of what our friendship is like. And I think that's what resonates with people too. Yeah. Is I think people have people in their lives that they get to connect with, or they're looking for that, and they're looking for that kind of vulnerability and just open conversation where it's like, you don't have to have all the answers, but we're here to have a conversation and to learn from your perspective, and then interject my perspective, and then say, our experiences are different. How can we look at it? Right?
I think what's really interesting too is that we have had late night talks.
Quite a few.
I remember one night I was drunk. And I called Brennan, and he was at my house in 10 minutes.
Well, I live pretty close.
Right.
So.
You live close. And then he just sat there and talked to me. And I know from hearing that you guys have had late night conversations. But I don't think we've ever had one
with the three of us. Yeah.
I could go anywhere.
Here we go.
I could go anywhere.
It's a beautiful thing though about you, Brennan, is you are, I think most people that know you or have a relationship with you would attest to that fact that Taylor just brought up of, I'm in this spot and I'm just reaching out because I need something. Sure. I need that thing. And the ability to show up for your people, for your friends, people in your life that you care about, and just listen or provide or contribute to the conversation, that's a special thing. And I would say it's very confident that you have been blessed and you give that to people. You show up and you're there, which is, I don't take for granted. I'm sure Taylor doesn't. But you're a good person to have in my life, and I
appreciate
it's very valuable to me.
Yeah,
You're one of those people, Bren, that like. I think we're close. I feel like we could have a closer relationship. But I feel like you're one of those people that like. I want to get to a place where we're like hanging out all the time.
Me too, bro.
Like all the time, you know?
Yeah.
We started recording like 3 minutes ago. Are you still feeling just as nervous? Like, is the nervous?
Is
the anxiety going up, going down? Like, where we at?
We're the same. We're good though.
Equal. Okay, well, we're just gonna let you take it away. So go ahead.
No, I appreciate what you guys were saying. I do my absolute best to, like you said, Corey, kind of stand in the gap.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people today, and for all of us, I mean, our friends are, some of them are on the brink. So it's my duty. It's my honor to stand in the gap. And if you got to call me late at night, that's fine. I do my best work late at night. I always have. So I'm happy to be here, happy to be your friends, and honored to be a part of your podcast.
Oh man, shucks.
And it stands in the gap.
Right.
That's a good way to. That's very fitting. It's
Do
a
you
great
think?
quality.
Have you always been that way, or like in terms of obviously like you've had a couple of different careers, but like a career, but it's like even like growing up, like through teenage years, like all the things you went through growing up, like were you always that person?
Yeah, I would say that I was. Yeah, I think I was always that person. I was always the person that tried to be a bridge between people. I never fit into any one group particularly. So what's the next best thing is to connect the groups together. Yeah. So yeah,
which that statement in and of itself is interesting, because I'm just going to go here right out of the gate, because just based on the color of your skin, I feel like you could easily be put into a group, or people will try to put you in a group
always
right away, and come out and say like, that's not me. I'm the person that gets in like between those. Like, how is that?
Yeah, no, that's where the action is. It's in the trenches. It's in between. It's in between that standard deviation. That's where life is.
Happens.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a good point.
Dude, where do you want to go from here? Because we could go 14 different directions.
I mean, I think where I initially thought I wanted to at least start the conversation, was around this idea of fatherhood, because the three of us now, like, we are fathers, and you are somebody, and Marshall's a little bit older than us, 6 months. And I remember the day your son was born.
Yeah.
Right. I remember. I think we were at a joint birthday party.
Yeah.
And your wife had said just go out. And you showed up.
We took a great picture that night.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
I still have it.
Oh man. And so from that point, I feel like in my mind, you were like this, even though not a ton of time had passed, but you were like the first of people in my close circle that I felt kind of jumped into being a father.
Yeah.
And then I have seen through the years, I guess sometimes there's a perspective that you have and things that you've said about how you have interacted with, how you've responded to, how you've dealt with situations with your child, with Marshall. That have always kind of led me to be like, oh, I need to make sure that I'm aware of these things too. You were very much the first person to me that was doing that. So I just thought it would be a natural thing to talk about fatherhood, what it is to be a father, and
big topic.
Kind of go from there, because if I was in that situation and that feeling of being like, oh, I'm not looking at this the way maybe I should be, I'm sure a lot of young men are in that situation as well. And whether you're a father now or about to be a father or hope to be a father, I think that hearing your perspective can be very valuable.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of where I was thinking about going. How we kick that off. I mean,
I'll kick it off.
Go for it.
I'll go. Brennan, what was, I know some of this story, But what was your example of fatherhood growing up?
Oh, I guess not great. Can I say that?
You
can
Not
say
great.
whatever you want,
No,
dude.
I mean, I guess I was kind of a product of like the statistics of my particular demographic. Dad wasn't in the home. Single mom, young, doing the best she could. But
Yo, shout out to Tracy though. She's a
yeah,
saint.
shout out. She really is an
She's
angel.
an absolute
Yeah,
saint.
she's an absolute G for sure. But yeah, just no, he wasn't around. Didn't make much of an appearance. Started out life, when him and my mom were still together. They did a couple years. They did the best they could. They were both, again, super young. And there was a long period of time where I didn't meet him again till I think my mom surprised me on like my 25th birthday. Hey, your dad's back in town, So I guess for all intents and purposes, not great.
Yeah. Did you like have any male examples in your life, or was it like just your mom?
By the grace of God, I had more than I needed. I had so many. There was a few. I had there was a family that we were close to growing up, and their dad kind of brought me into his fold. I call him my adoptive father, and taught me a lot of great stuff. From there, I had a youth pastor actually who gave me my first Bible with my name on it and gold ink, and it was a really big deal, and it was. He got me through those teenage years, and from there on, I've kind of found mentorship in pastorship and shepherding through some online sources, some people that I know, just mentors in the church, and no, God's been very, very good to me in terms of father figures in the place of my earthly father who wasn't up to the job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't have the same experience. I was fortunate enough to have my father present. But there was a moment I remember, and this was like one of those weird things in my life that was like, this is so cool that having the opportunity, like your dad has been somewhat like you have some sort of relationship with him now.
Yeah.
And I remember you called me one night and were like, Corey, can you come over?
Yeah.
And we had plans to listen to music, and he said, but he's like, my pops is coming over.
Yeah.
I would really like you to be here. And I don't know if it was like the first time that he had been like in your home.
Oh yeah.
And but we sat there and we watched a little hockey.
That's right.
And going through it, and it was just like there was over the course of 30 years of somebody being in and out of your life. I'm sure there is a lot of emotions. There's a lot of feelings.
Oh yeah.
Trauma through all that.
Sure.
But it was a special thing for me to just be in that room with you and see, and even like the pride that I saw just sitting watching hockey from like of your dad looking at you.
Yeah.
Despite all like not being like looking at the man you had become, it was really cool, and the honor you still showed him.
Yeah.
Too. Like it was that was a crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy
yeah. It
night.
was, and honestly, that interaction that day, it's funny that you mentioned it, I almost totally forgot, was kind of a mile marker in terms of my dad and I's relationship. Just like a new start. I know we had some issues in the past, but like from here on out, we have a son now. Let's see where we go moving forward. So that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, that was cool. And it was, because whether you have this experience you had, or you have an experience where your father has been in your life throughout, there's still breaks that happen for all of us. And there's still like, I think spots. And so I think just the ability, you exemplify the ability at a big level of like being able to press that reset button, show grace, as I'm sure like that, it goes both ways in my head. I want to be fair to say, like, I guess I want to make sure that I can hit the reset button.
Sure.
However, I feel like I've been wronged because I also think that there's another perspective, right or wrong, that also feels hurt or feels
Sure.
like I didn't give enough or care enough and go through it. And I want him to be able to push the reset button with me too. So just having those kind of milestone moments and the ability of opening your door to somebody that maybe hasn't been there the whole time when you felt like they should have been, or you would feel like it's innately in them to be there, I think is huge.
Yeah.
That kind of just keeping the door open.
How did that play into your like mental state when your wife was pregnant? So like when I was really young, my dad was amazing, and then talk about everybody has kind of breaks. My dad and I went through a couple of years when my parents got separated and all this kind of stuff, and now we're back to having a great relationship. And he's always been there. He's always been present. It just, our relationship has gone up and down, right? But he's an amazing human being, and we have a great relationship now. But I think that like when my wife was pregnant with our first child in particular, there were a lot of thoughts that I had about things that my dad had done or things that my dad had said, and the thought of like, I feel like you can fall in this trap of like, I'm going to be just like my dad, or I'm absolutely not going to be my dad. Right. So like, how did that experience growing up play into like before your child was born, what were the thoughts going through your head?
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned that. I remember feeling just absolute fear and apprehension, and this is too big for me. I'm not equipped for this. I didn't have a good example growing up. Who am I to give some other kid an example for what I didn't have? You can't lead anybody anywhere you haven't been before. So who am I? Who am I to teach this kid how to be a man? My dad didn't teach me about it, but that's the wonderful part of scripture, is that like God gives us a model of fatherhood and how he looks at his children, how he treats his children, how he disciplines his children. He gives us the most effective model you could ever be. So you could ever have. So I'm just so thankful that he got me at a young age, and he didn't let me go. He didn't let me be a victim of my statistics or my demographic. And he got a hold of me young, and
So when you hear like the term like fatherhood, being a father, when you think about that, like at its core, what are the things that come to your mind immediately, or what like kind of just resonates in your chest of what that means?
Again, it was fear, and Taylor, you actually mentioned it earlier. It was this idea of like, if there was ever anyone who shouldn't make it, it's me. I don't have any right to be here. So it was fear, and it was I didn't believe in myself, and yeah, that's all it was really.
But even then, look at Brennan now.
Oh yeah.
Now how do you view it? Now,
it's an
like,
honor.
As you look at like,
it's the highest honor I could ever achieve in my whole life. If I could die today, and I would be content with how I've looked at fatherhood, because like I said, God got a hold of me young and said, I know what your dad did. You're going to be different. And you have to be different, because there's somebody coming after you, and there's somebody coming after them, and somebody come after them.
Yeah.
Do you think that's how God feels about us?
How so?
Honored to be our father.
I know that he went to the furthest extent to reach us.
Yeah.
And again, that puts in you as a father, as a man, that puts in you a whole new mandate. Yeah. That's a whole new level. Like the God of the universe became flesh and went to a cross. He humbled himself even to death.
Yeah.
And to prove to you that he is who he says he is, and he believes full-heartedly in you. And that'll change your life for sure, especially as a dad.
I think I'm probably told this story before, to both of you and on the podcast, but when my first son was born, like immediately, like I was sobbing. Brooke was doing what Brooke did. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And like the first thought that popped into my head was first, like, I love this gooey, like covered little thing, alien that just came out of my wife, right? But
we had such different experiences when we first saw our kids, though.
Right.
Because my picture of Ruby, I was like, "Who is this character out of the Lord of the Rings? Nobody else is jumping. Is everything okay? This is normal. We're okay with this. Like,
right?
We sure? Like,
Right.
This is brutal. Looking.
Right. But
I wish I had the bubbly. Like, that came later.
Yeah,
when she was 1.
Right. Right. Well, the births were very different for.
I mean, they still look the same, though, right?
I mean, they
Generally,
look strange.
I was
like
freaked
fighting
out.
Urukai.
It was more like a golem kind of thing.
Gollum, yeah.
But this like second thought, the immediately follow up thought, like standing there, I hadn't even held him yet, was like, this is what unconditional love is. Like immediately in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. It was like, oh my goodness, you were in there the whole time.
Right.
Like, there was a whole person in there.
Right.
And I'm like, and now I'm responsible for you. Oh my goodness.
Right.
It was a new level.
But I personally feel like something clicked, like in the hospital room in that moment of like, I didn't know how. And like before my first child, like I had never changed a diaper. Like I'd never done any of that. Right. But like, and there was that nervousness, I think that you were talking about of like, how am I supposed to do this? And I had an example. Yeah. Right. But at the same time, it's like in that moment, all of a sudden it was like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to take care of you. Like I'm going to protect you. I'm going to provide. I'm going to do whatever it takes to be here for you.
Put up or shut up. Time to go.
Time to roll.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Aside from, I guess, like, like you're thrown in the moment. None of us know what it means or what it's going to be asked of us to be a father until we're in that. But aside from that, I guess at its base level, like, what are the core things? I'll throw this out to all of us, like, that, like, we kind of seek to impart to our children. And I think it's different. I think it's, I could be wrong, but I think they might be different between sons and daughters. Oh yeah. And I'm about to go into the experience of having a son. Right. So I'm very interested because that is part of the, I don't want to say terrifying because that's like a big scary word, but like, I didn't know what it was, anything about little girls. And I had a little girl and I've been in the process of figuring that out. And I feel comfortable in that now, like with Rue and how to handle her, how I respond. I know for sure things that I do not want to project onto her as how a man talks to her or anything like that. But the son thing, I kind of feel like different. And I think this could put me in a category, but like, I think that it's fair to acknowledge them both, boys and like sons and daughters, as like two totally different species. Not species.
Well,
they're
I don't
human,
know,
but they're different creatures. They're like,
none of us have both currently.
That's true. That's fair. So maybe we're not equipped to. I would say though, like knowing myself as a boy, or
I'm scared of having a daughter
and having a little girl is like. I mean, you learn that when you get married,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Men, boys and girls are different. Men are from Mars. Girls are from
that's right.
Or I don't know. What is it?
That's right.
Men are from Mars or girls are from Mars? Men are from Venus.
It doesn't matter.
Men are from Mars. So.
Both.
Girls are from Venus.
Are from Uranus.
But you're elementary school.
But you're absolutely right. There's a difference between raising a son and raising a daughter. You cannot raise your son like you raise your daughter. It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So let's maybe talk about. You guys can talk for now on like things that you're really trying to impart to your son, and how you handle it. And then maybe my perspective can say like, oh, I do the same thing with my daughter, or I would handle it differently for my daughter. That could be interesting.
One of the things I've been doing since before I became a father, was writing letters to my future child. I started in about like 2014.
Wow.
Just because I knew there was something in there. I didn't want to be a father, but I knew God was going to do it anyways. So I said I might as well write this stuff down. And among those things, I kind of started coming up with what I call dad proverbs.
Oh, let's go. Let's go.
Wow.
Dad proverbs.
And the one of the ones I wanted to mention today. A good mother knows your heart. A good father knows your nature.
Talk on that.
Ooh.
Yeah. And again, we're modeled. We get to see the model in Christ in Scripture. For boys, like you said, Corey, I've been a young boy before.
Mm-hmm.
I know the path you're going to take. I know where you're going. I'm coming back from where you're going to. So trust me when I say there's some things you're gonna want to avoid, and there's some things you're gonna want to focus on, extra specifically, that are not going to be, you're not going to want to do them naturally. They are countercultural. They are counter inner man. There's some things you're going to have to do that you don't want to do, but I promise you, they're in your best interest.
I have some.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I have some answers to your question, but I want to hear the rest of the dad proverbs.
Oh, should we break one at a time? Just break down.
Right. I just like.
I'm really stuck on that your mom's gonna know your heart.
Yeah,
your dad
but a
is
good father knows your nature.
Your nature.
Mm-hmm. The natural man.
Mm-hmm.
Who you are when nobody's looking.
Right, I mean, I would relate that to like with my sons. I'm going to call it their intrusive thoughts. My sons are learning to control their intrusive thoughts.
Okay.
We all, and I don't know what intrusive thoughts women have. I'm sure that they have them.
What are intrusive thoughts?
Okay. The intrusive thought is when you see something and you really want to do it, but it's totally inappropriate, so you don't do it. It's an intrusive thought that you don't let out, right? But with my children, they just act on it. They just do it.
They don't have the filter. Yeah.
So they see a football. Like my 4-year-old sees a football, sees a piece of glass. I'm going to throw it as hard as I can at that piece of glass.
Absolutely.
That's the intrusive thought where I maybe now would hold back.
Maybe.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
And not throw said football at said glass. But my son is just like, yup, and goes.
Do you think there's a conscious thing? Do you think it's two things? Do you think it's I see the football, I see the glass, I'm going to throw it? Or do you think it's I see the football, I'm going to throw this thing whatever direction as hard as I can because I have a ball in my hand? Mm-hmm. Does he see the glass?
I don't think it matters. I think it's the initial, like it's this initial thing of current, and I think this is some of what you were talking about. Like, there's some things you're not going to want to do, but you need to do. Mm-hmm. Of where right now, my 4-year-old, what we're working through right now is this thing of when he gets angry, he just wants to scream. Mm-hmm. Like when he gets mad or upset with something, he just wants to scream. And it's this thing of like, I get that. Mm-hmm. There are lots of times where something happens and I want to scream. Sure. But like, you can't do that.
Right.
You know?
Why can't you do it? Why can't you just be an animal?
I'd probably end up in jail.
Well, I think it depends on context. It depends on where you're at. You can just scream. You're in your home. You can scream.
But it's this thing of this like first impulse kind of thing that comes in.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to bypass.
Correct. Well, the answer I think to what I was like saying would be like the reason we don't just go around screaming when everything doesn't go our way as an adult men, or it's not healthy to do that, in my opinion, is because you have to think of like why are you screaming and what's the result you're trying to get from your scream?
Right.
Right. Your son is screaming because he's mad and he wants things to be different.
Right.
He wants the snack now or whatever the thing is, and why we don't do this, because we know that screaming doesn't actually lead us to getting what we
Right.
want.
That's
We've had
right.
to learn
Right.
that.
Right.
That's right.
Correct.
You know, like it's
Yeah, which is where fatherhood comes in. And there was a scripture that just came to mind now. Romans 8, verse 6. The mind is governed by the mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the spirit is life and peace. I understand how you feel. I understand what it makes you want to do. We're men. We have a proclivity to go a certain way depending on our emotions. But the mind governed by the flesh is death.
Yeah. And I would say too, like the propensity to be destructive is not a necessarily male thing. Because I would look Ruby when she's done with something, she doesn't get away at the table. She's got right now. What we're working on is like, let's not throw our food to communicate, because she's smart. Like she knows, but like she will. This is the thing about conscious choice. She will look me dead in the eye, and she doesn't get her iPod to put a show on or something, and she's mad, and she'll look at me, and I'm like, we're not going to do that right now. It's okay. We're going to have dinner together. And she'll grab her bowl of grapes, and she'll look at me. She'll pick the bowl up, move off of the table so that it will land on the floor, and like look at me and be like, and be like, pick them up.
Yep.
Boy.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
I'm
right.
like, and I look at her like, why
That's
do you do
right.
that? And she just looks at me and she's like, and just starts flailing around. But like, she's still like, she's like in my head, I'm just like trying to go through like, don't be mad at the action.
Right.
It's like, what is she trying to communicate? How do I communicate, or at least address whatever that the angst is?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily throwing a ball through a glass window, but like she throws crap all the time.
I think
Hard
on the same
things,
topic, and
wooden toys.
I think on the same time, I'm very interested to hear like your perspective on this. Is one of the things that I really want to put into my sons is and provide an example for, but also teach them, is this idea of being bold, boldness, but also being respectful. And there's a balance there in terms of, I want you to be bold, but I also want you to listen to me, because I've been where you've been at before. Yeah. And I want you to be bold in who you are and what you believe in and the person that you are growing into. But you also need to have respect for people who have gone through what you've gone through before and made the mistakes that could stop you from making the same mistakes again. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a super broad question. But I think it comes down to that training up of a child. That's another dad proverb, actually.
Oh,
yes.
Another
dad proverb.
He will not depart from it. That one's actually from Proverbs.
Let me see if I can remember correctly. The quality of your life is dependent on the quality of your decisions. The quality of your decisions is dependent on the quality of information that you receive. If you are passing down good information to your son, there comes a point where you just have to trust in not only what you've said, but the Holy Spirit working in him, right? As that helper, as that that counselor, to kind of put some guardrails on some things, here and there. So, like I said, that's a super broad question.
The trust thing is hard, I think, and I think it starts very early. Of like, you have to have enough trust that they'll make some decisions. And allow a certain amount of risk.
Sure.
So that not all of life is, with bumpers on it, like at a bowling alley, because like Jordan Peterson, buddy JP, I don't remember the butcher's quote, but basically he talks about this idea of like how important allowing our children to take controlled risks.
Doing dangerous things carefully. Yes, sir.
He's down with JP too.
Absolutely.
You and JP are boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's the line too of like trusting. Well, is she? I'm dealing with this right now. We got a little booster chair because we're trying to. Ruby doesn't like her high seat anymore, so we got this little foam booster chair to put on our regular seats, so she sits at the table like a big girl. But now, as soon as she got that, she's just immediately testing all the boundaries of this booster chair. Sliding all over the place, putting her heels on the real chair. She's on the booster chair going. And this point of just like, I'm going to let you explore this. Instead of just being like, nope, you sit this way all the time. Like we have to sit back with you. And it's like, go through. And then in my head, I was like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, I don't want her to fall.
Yeah.
I don't want her to hurt herself. But I have to leave that maybe. Is it bad parenting to leave that fall as an option?
No.
Absolutely not. I think
for
God,
a girl and a boy.
No.
Or a boy.
No,
I just think like really. Yeah.
Absolutely not. I think God, again, we have the model in Scripture. God gives us free will. But at the same time, in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. I don't want you to get hurt. My intention for you is not your pain. But I'll let you do it. If I have to do it, I'll let you go. I'll let you learn. I'll let you touch that stove. I'll let you fall off that high chair. I'll let you do it if you have to. But at the end of the day, that's not my intention for you.
I haven't gotten to that point yet. I will
sorry
not. I will not let her.
sped ahead.
I will not let her. No. As a father, like, I will not let her touch the stove. If she goes toward that stove, I'm like, grab the towel. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Well,
wait till boys.
I-
Wait till boys.
I think the
could be a difference.
interesting.
Could be.
I
a
think
difference.
the interesting thing here is that I think when we say the word pain, a lot of times we automatically assume that means physical.
Yeah.
Okay, but teaching our children with pain, there can also be a pain of no, you're not going to get the snack that you want right this second, and that is taken as a pain as
to them.
This is the worst
right.
thing ever in this moment that I can't have Cheez-Its and
right.
I really want cheese, but that's pain too. And I was talking to actually someone you guys know. I'm not going to say her name, but I was talking to her about saying yes and saying no to your kids and all these different kinds of things. And her biggest tip for me was literally, all you have to remember is that once you say no once, you can't back down from that.
Yeah.
Like if you want to let your child do something, if you want to buy them something, if you want to let them do something, then like do it. Like let them, like that's your prerogative.
Sure.
But if you say no to them, don't back down from that no.
Sure.
Because as soon as you do that, then you're teaching them that they can whine long enough or cry long enough or push long enough
So true.
to get around your no.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good.
And I think that that's been so powerful. And I think for us, I mean, for me, you look at a booster seat or a chair or something, and like, I obviously don't want my children to get hurt. But like if it's like the quote of like, I'm not going to say it on this episode, but it's like the F around and find out. Right?
A different episode, you might say it.
Yeah. But it's this thing of like, dude, if you're going to mess around in that chair and you fall, like you're going to find out. But this is the thing is that you're not going to do it again. He's not dumb.
Yeah.
Like they understand. You know, like they're actually really, like kids are actually really smart.
They are
That's
smart.
right.
That was one of the most surprising things to me. I don't think I expected them to be dumb, but like they're very intuitive. Like they understand things very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Will Jones had love you pops, had a great quote, and he would throw around to my brother and I all the time. He'd say, "Mess around, lay around," all the time. Yeah, mess around, lay around, and to the point, like really, like I remember vividly being like a 4 or 5 year old, and we lived on this. We had this house that was like on a farm, had some cattle. Well, in fact, and then an electric fence, and we were told not to go close to the electric fence. But like we got close.
Right.
And at one day, Cody, God love him, made the decision to just grab a hold of the thing. And nobody jumped in to stop him. But he grabbed it and shocked him. Mess around, lay around. And
that's right.
You don't touch that fence again?
That's right.
I don't know.
That's right. That's a great father lesson. I mean, I've been reading through the Old Testament recently, which I haven't done in a while. But in that scripture, you really see the relationship between God and his people Israel, and all of the silly things that they do. And God says, you can go this far and no further. You can try,
Right.
do you? But I'm let you know, this is my standard. This is where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Get down or lay down. That's where I come
Get
from.
lost
That's
in the desert.
that's what it sounds like. When
He
I
says,
come from.
get lost in the desert for
Well,
40 years
Yeah,
to find out.
that's right.
Like,
That's right.
And I wonder, like, kind of, where you see, I guess, like, again, we're not in every house in America, but like generally, where do we see like parenting today or the father figures today? Because in my head, it feels like the culture is telling us that there are fewer parents that are saying, this is the line, son.
Mm-hmm.
If you go over this line, there is a consequence to it.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be good. I don't want you, but like, I feel like I could be wrong, but it seems kind of prevalent that we no longer have lines for our children.
That's right.
yeah.
And where does that, and really right away, I like start thinking about like, what is that going to do 20 years from now, 30
Mm-hmm.
years from now? I mean, I think we're already experiencing some of that. I think it was a lot of like, I think it's been a slower progression.
Mm-hmm.
And I think parents are the goal is always to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not saying that our parents were all bad in any way. It's not insulting to them to say like, hey, but I would love to do better than my mother
Sure.
or my father. Like that is what
think
I
we
want
should do
my
that.
children
I
to
agree,
say is
by
like,
the way.
I feel like that's at its core of like humanity, or at the core of like, even when we just passed July 4th, but I think like the core of this country is like, do better. Like we started this country with the purpose of creating something new but doing better and building on what was already there. And I feel like they want every generation, the heart of the generation before
Yes.
should be for that generation to do
Better.
It's kind of like what Christ would say in the gospel is like, the things you've seen me do,
Mm-hmm.
you will do in more.
That's right. Greater works.
That's not an insulting thing. That should be the wish. So I feel like, and I think that we would be ignorant to say that hasn't happened in a sense.
Sure.
But I think that I feel like there was, and maybe this is like me sounding old because I'm like, when I was coming up, when we were coming up, or like like there was none of this stuff. Like there was very little gray.
That's right.
In the Jones household.
Mm-hmm.
It was black and white, and we don't have to go into all of like corporal punishment and spankings, but it was like there was a clear line, and it just
That's
like
right.
didn't. And I'm not saying that all of those things are 100% necessary, or whatever. Don't have that conversation right now. But like it feels like there was a jump, like something happened very quickly over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And that's just my perception. I could be wrong, where it feels like there is not that authority in the house
Mm-hmm.
anymore, where there is a clear line. And if you cross that, the consequences aren't something you want to deal with.
Sure.
And so like, be transparent. My consequences were getting my butt beat.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Openly. Like it was like, is that the right thing? Do I think my parents had any malicious intent? Absolutely not. I think that they were doing a better job than what they had.
Mm-hmm.
An example of, I think they were really trying to raise me in the way that the scripture said.
Absolutely.
And they would look at this and say like, well, like I used to joke, like still to this day, like sometimes bust my mom's chops about the stupid times we got spanked over having too much food in our mouths or whatever. Like it was drop of the hat. Like you could get,
Ours was
and she
getting
would
locked outside.
which could
We would
also
just-
be a different form.
we would like,
you can't even put a
it would
dog
like-
outside these days.
It would just skip it, and we would just get locked outside.
Yeah.
But
Get
I was like,
outside.
we'll joke.
Mhm.
I will joke with her, and my mom to this day will like kind of laugh and be like, "It wasn't like that." I was like, "It was like that, Mom," and then she'll like default to it's like, "Well," she's like, "No matter what, it's like I raised two good young men, nice
Mhm.
young men." That's like, and it's hard for me to actually look and argue that. Like Cody and I both have come out pretty well adjusted and like decent, quote unquote, like successful, healthy people. But then the answer, the question I start having is like, well, I know several people that were never hit as a kid.
Yeah.
Right.
And they seem okay too. I know some people that got their butts whooped on, and they are assholes to this day. Like they didn't learn no lessons.
That's right.
Like what?
Plenty
so, like
of
that's
them.
that like it wasn't like. And I'm don't know, maybe we're talking about spankings now, which is weird, but like that wasn't the defining thing. It wasn't that. It wasn't that the form of correction.
Yeah.
I think it was more about that there was a clear line of discipline that we were not in charge.
Mm-hmm.
There were rules in place mostly for our best
That's right.
interest.
Yeah.
And their heart was for us to be good young men and to teach us respect. And like that we didn't always get our way.
That's right.
And like you had to deal with that.
That's right.
Is that something, do we feel like that's still happening?
No, that's another biblical concept. He chastens those he loves. He disciplines those he loves. Yeah. I don't want you to go this way. I know it's going to hurt, but I need you to go this way. Yeah. So no,
I think the really interesting thing that I would love to like talk about or figure out is, you know, like I said, my parents growing up, like a typical thing would just be like, get outside, go outside. Like that was the response. Like, get outside. You're not allowed in the house. You're not allowed anywhere close. And like, we would be outside for hours at a time. And I feel like there are a lot of people now who are like, don't even go outside. Like, not allowed, right? But I want to know how much of like a pain I was to my parents. Like, that's what I really want to know is like, I feel like we remember things. We remember spankings. We remember getting outside. We remember doing whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But like, how many times genuinely did you pull the equivalent of looking them in the eyes, pulling the bowl of grapes over and pouring them out when you were 2 years old? Mm-hmm. Right? Because like, I'm sure you did something to that
child.
extent.
Yeah. You're
like it's something you go through, right?
Sure.
And I feel like it's this idea of if you want to teach a child something, you just have to actually teach them. Like you just have to actually put in the work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's not always comfortable. And it's not always the easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. But if I don't want my kid to watch his iPad all the time, then don't give him his iPad. And he might scream and he might cry, but don't give it to him.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you might have to deal with 3 days of him screaming, well, but you just don't give it to him. Right. And so like, it's different things back then, but it's also, I think that our generation, here's what I will say. I think that I'll say our generation, there are specific things that have been much easier for us than for our parents.
I agree.
And I think that those specific things creep into every aspect of our life in terms of if we want to know something, I'm going to pull it out of my pocket and I'm going to Google it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If our parents wanted to know something, they had to ask some people, hope that they told them the truth, or get on a bus or walk to go to the library. Mm-hmm. At least my parents did.
Yeah.
Right? And so even those little things of this idea of like any information is at the tip of my fingertips. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it's right there. And I think that paints this picture of like, oh, it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about all the times that like if my dad told me something or my mom told me something, like even if you weren't rock, like I never questioned it because I would not have the resources to actually like.
Right.
Also like you just didn't question it. Like it was direct from the mouth of God kind of a thing. Yeah. But like how I'd react to like if I was to now, you could tell your kid anything, like tell him it's like, no, this is like, and then it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And how do you respond to that? It'd be like,
well there are even things where like now Aussie knows how to work the TV remote. Aussie can turn on the TV, get to YouTube, Disney Plus, whatever he wants to watch, navigate there and watch whatever he wants to watch. Mm-hmm. So if today I told Aussie, hey, you, no TV, no screens, no nothing tomorrow or the next week or whatever it is. The problem then becomes, this is what goes through my head. The problem now becomes is that what that means is that for however long that decision is, I have to get up earlier than him. Mm-hmm. Because he will get up at 5:45 in the morning and he will go downstairs and he will turn on the TV. And he will watch whatever he wants to watch. And if I don't get up there is no discipline. Like the
Mhm.
discipline disappears
Yeah,
because he's doing it anyway. There's nobody there to stop him.
that's
There's
right.
no discipline there.
So if you set that as like a thing that you're taking away from him, you have to follow through in
Correct.
that way. Yeah.
And I think that is where
Sucks.
I have not always been the best at it myself. I'll admit that. And also where I see we all have a lot of the same friends. I see other people with kids
Mhm.
who don't follow through. And I'm not calling anybody a bad parent. I'm just saying, like,
It's hard.
this is what we're
Yeah.
talking about. And
Just
it's
like
like
that's the-
Definitely.
that follow through is everything.
Yeah, it's key.
Matt, jump in.
So
there.
I'd like to bring it back to the idea, the talk about discipline, and you've talked a lot about a lot of different forms of discipline. I'd like to hear you talk more about the distinction between correction and punishment.
Who? Okay.
Oh,
Take it away, Brandon.
wow, drummer Matt, thanks. Correction, it is what it is. You're going this way. I'm putting a guardrail here, not only for your safety, but for the benefit of you in the long run. Punishment is that moment where you look me dead in the eyes and you poured the grapes out. And it's just like, and again, reading through the Old Testament, there were several instances where God's people looked him dead in his face and said, I don't believe what you're telling me.
Right.
I don't believe that you have my best interest at heart. I don't
Right.
believe that you're what. And the apostles did it themselves. What was that story in the boat when they're on the lake? Do you not care,
Right.
God? Do you not care that we're drowning? And,
Yeah.
and Jesus had a strong response to that, and so strong that he commanded the waves, and they were confounded. Who is this dude that speaks to the waves? You know, he had a strong response to that. Correction is, again, that's the guardrail, and punishment is you look me dead in my face and you didn't believe what I said that I had my best interest.
And I would say the same thing, just phrase it a little different. Is correction, you haven't messed all the way up yet.
Yeah.
Punishment, you have.
Yeah.
I might not be hearing things correctly because I don't know that either of you are like. We have to talk through this.
Let's go.
So correction is you haven't messed all the way up.
Correction means you're heading down the wrong path right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you need so here's what I would say. Aussie really wants to watch TV or get a snack or whatever it is. And I say no. And he starts to whine.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can go, bud, you have a choice right now. And here's your choice. You can either keep doing what you're doing and go to your room, or you can stop whining and you can go play with that truck over there and I'll come play with you. Or you can go do this, or you can do something. There's this idea of correction of you don't need to be doing what you're doing right now because you're not going to get what you want. If he continues to do it, I told you not to do this. I gave you your warning. I gave you some space here to learn.
And
you didn't make the right decision, so now you're done.
The punishment is the consequence.
Correct.
Of it. Yeah. Because I feel like we look at correction as being like, I think more to what you were saying, Brennan, this course correcting, this idea of presenting options to make a choice. And one of those options is the better choice. And then discipline is when that better choice is not taken.
Yes.
The road less traveled by is not taken. And then there's the consequence for that.
Unless you're my second son, then he takes that road all the time. Love him to death.
Doesn't love correction. Well, again, too, like I still, like I guess in my mind, view correction as part of like the choice has already been made. Like correcting like someone, a mistake's already happened to be corrected.
So remember earlier
right?
when we were talking about those intrusive thoughts? Like the intrusive thought is to keep screaming until I get what I want. And if he believes that is true, then he will continue to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's and that's a principle when we went through like just sleep training, something as simple as that with Ruby, of being like we got this course called Taking Care of Babies. Shouts out to Tara. But she puts you as the parent in the perspective of the child and being like, so the child would rather you be holding them when they fall asleep. So if you lay them down, they're going to scream because they're not getting what they want. If you walk in there, light bulb goes off. I just hit the jackpot. It's kind of like the lottery. So
It's a dopamine rush.
Yeah.
And so no, it's like, okay, well, yelling at the top of my lungs got me what I wanted.
Right.
So I'll do it again. And then it might not be 5 minutes, it might not be 15 minutes, but I know if I yell long enough, they'll come in.
Right.
So she said, like in that course, they set up a very clear structure of you do not break the structure for your check-ins.
Sure.
So that you establish, like, no matter what I yell, it's like they're not coming in any sooner,
Right.
or the variations and changing. So you're removing the lottery thing of like, I know if I just do this behavior long enough, one of these times I'm going to hit the jackpot and mom is going to pick me up and sit me in the chair.
And so
then,
like that, I don't see as punishment. I see
that's
as
not
correction.
punishment at all.
Yeah.
Right. But that's where I would see like
I don't
the
even think
difference.
is that correction or is it just teaching?
So I'd like to revise my question to what is the difference between punishment and discipline?
Different question.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit clearer there. Maybe not any easier. Punishment and discipline, gentlemen.
Yeah. Discipline, again, you can build on that idea that we were already talking about. I think discipline is what they call, I spent 13 years in law enforcement, what they would call a course of conduct. It's a continual guardrail putting up. That's discipline. You can go this far and no further because it's in your best interest to keep on the path that you're on. So it's a course of conduct of correction. That, I guess that it's multiple correction. That would be discipline. Multiple variations of correction depending on the state that you're in.
Google, just to throw out Google, talks about the difference between discipline and correction. And then it says, when it comes to correcting your child's misbehavior, there's a big difference between punishment and discipline. While punishment focuses on making a child suffer for breaking the rules, discipline is about teaching him or her how to make a better choice next time.
Yeah. I think that I agree with what Brennan said. If discipline is a continual thing, punishment is almost like an endpoint. Like, hey, if you go here, you're gonna get here, right? But at the same time, I would also consider punishment a part of discipline, of like there are consequences to your actions, right? And you can only, like, if you bump up against, we use this example of guardrails, right? If you bump up against guardrails enough, but nothing ever actually happens to you, then you're going to keep bumping up against them.
Is discipline, what's the value of discipline if there is no punishment?
Yeah.
Does that?
They will call your bluff.
Yeah.
People will call your bluff in general, like not just kids, right? But I think that is where the switch has to come on of it's the same thing we just saw of like this follow through, right? Of like, I can't let my sons call my bluff.
Yeah.
Because when I do, then there's not just, and like, to be completely clear, there's like an ego hit there of like, dang it, I didn't do that right. But
that's important though. Like, I hear what you're saying. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't apologize or admit that we're wrong to our children.
Absolutely.
Like, that isn't, like, that's
100%.
a huge thing. If we can show, specifically, I would say boys, but I would even look at my daughter at times where it's like, I do something wrong. And even if she doesn't understand, like, times I'd like lose, like, situations silly, but like raise my voice over something or like get frustrated by the grapes thing. And like, Ruby, why? And they go through it and then I'll stop and be like, Ruby, like, I don't, when you dump out your food, like that's was meant for you to eat. Now it's dirty. We have to clean it up and like go through it. And like, I want her to understand that even if she's not processing it, I go through the process of like talking through why that's not a good behavior, why it impacts other people besides herself. And then I say, she doesn't fully know, but she knows when I speak to her differently. And I said, like, I'm so sorry that I lost my temper over that. That wasn't worth me flaking out like that over something stupid.
And see, even going back to Matt's question of the discipline versus punishment, I would also say that there's a very big difference between healthy punishment and unhealthy punishment.
Absolutely.
What's the difference?
Healthy punishment, I would say that there's an understanding there.
Yeah.
That there's an understanding of why this is happening.
Yeah.
There needs to be, like, there has to be a cause and effect.
Yeah. And there's also nothing that I personally gain from doing it. Yeah.
Correct. Whereas an unhealthy punishment, I would equate to abuse. Like, you're doing this for...
There's no understanding.
For what?
There's no...
Your kids don't even understand what they did, and you're going to you're gonna beat him. Like,
Right.
this is
Yeah.
silly, right? But if something is going to happen, whether it be all the way from go sit in timeout to a spanking or whatever it may be, there has to be, hey, why is this happening right now?
That's right.
Tell me why this is happening right
Yep.
now. Because we've talked about this before, of where I have been in the process of disciplining Asi, and I go, why are you in timeout right now? And he goes, because I was screaming and because I was crying. And I had to go, no. Screaming, yes. I'm not mad at you because you're crying.
Yeah.
And you have to make distinctions between
absolutely.
what is wrong and what is right, and everywhere.
I'm not mad
in
at you for
between.
being sad.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if something is wrong and you're hurt, you need to cry.
Sure.
And you need to know that that's okay so that we can come and help you. That's what we're here for. But if you're just whining and screaming because you didn't get what you want, whole different story.
Yeah. Brennan, what do you think? Maybe what were the expectations that you had for both of us, all of us, like going into being a father? Like the great scene in the movie 500 Days of Summer of expectation versus reality and how they play out. And what we see in our minds is very rarely what we end up realizing in real life. What are some expectations that we've had about what it is to be a father that have been kind of rocked by the reality? Like, what have we learned there?
Yeah, it's we grew up with the TV dad, we grew up with, the Jeffersons and, and the Cosby
Mr.
Show
Wilson.
and, Full House. And we grew up with the TV dad. And I thought that's how it was going to be. And it absolutely wasn't. It's a labor. It's not, very often it's not fun. It's not easy. It's a laborious process, but, oh my God, is it worth it? I mean, it's to be able to all three of us to get to the end of our lives and say that, I raised my children in the Lord. I mean, it's something that a lot of people these days can't say. It's an honor.
I didn't realize how hard the first 6 months were going to be. I thought that was going to be the easiest part.
Yeah. They're this big. You can put them in a drawer.
I remember people like making comments, being like, "It's like that person, like they can't even move around.
Right.
You set them down.
How hard could it be?"
I didn't realize how hard.
Every 2.5 hours that they wake up, and tell you it's really hard.
Yeah.
But I think that specifically as fathers, what also makes it hard is particularly if your wife is feeding the child or pumping and feeding the child, then we can literally do nothing for that child. If the child is screaming I'm talking infant stage, right? I'm talking 1 month, 2 months, maybe 3, right? If they are screaming, it's because they're hungry. It just is. It is what it is. And the only way to soothe them is to give them milk, which my body cannot produce.
I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
Which my body cannot produce.
Thankfully.
And so I can do whatever I can to support my wife. And with our first child, I did. She would get up and pump and I would get up and feed. And it was what it is what it is. You know what I mean?
You find that way of how you can serve.
But I think that it was the very beginning. And I think that there was also this idea of kind of going along with saying, if I didn't realize how much I was going to learn from my kids.
Yeah.
So much to learn from them. How they see the world. How they
question
make their decision. How they question things, why they question things. Of my son woke up, my Ender woke up the other night at like 3:30 in the morning. And I went in there and I told you, I went into the room and he was screaming and I calmed him down I was just like, what's wrong? And he was like his literal response to what's wrong was, Daddy, pray. And he wanted me to pray. And it's just like, what if that, like, it like broke me
Yeah.
in that moment at 3:30. It was literally like,
That'll do it.
why is my response not pray every time something isn't wrong?
Yeah.
Like, why is that not just like my go-to?
Yeah.
But my son's is at 3:30 in the morning. So like, but it's just this incredible, like, totally worth it,
Sure.
more than worth it. But it's also this amazing experience where I get to look at them and I become a better man.
Yeah. It really kind of sheds light on the person of Jesus, that he, denied his deity and he became flesh to say, what are my kids up to? What do they think about? What are they, what's going on down there? I need to know. I need to be there with them. And what a great example we have from Jesus. So.
Any expectations that you had that were completely rocked?
Pretty much all of them. I mean, all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's if in fathers or to be fathers or potential fathers, if you're listening, it's a new level of responsibility, but it's a new level of honor, and it's the best thing I ever did.
What do you think is one of the most important things that a father or someone who is about to be a father needs to know about himself?
Patience.
That's like
patience. Our Father, Heavenly Father, is patient with us for a reason, because we look him dead in the eyes and we don't believe what he says. Patience. Especially for men.
That's a phenomenal answer.
Yeah.
Matt had wrote a note here. I'm sorry I jumped on that. What do you think on that?
On what?
On that question. About like what
Matt was watching
father...
the home run derby. He has no idea what
No, it said about like some of them you had wrote that you were going to take the question. I think I just missed it, but about from the perspective of not being a father yet, but wanting to be a father.
So, I'm recently married. That process requires a lot of learning about yourself. How do I function now with this adult person, which can be a lot easier to kind of lock in on? I can only imagine. I'm not a dad. Someday I will be a dad. Fingers crossed. That's going to require a whole new level of self-learning and understanding. And what do you think are some of the main things, some of the most important things a father needs to know about himself?
Well, I can tell you that you're already on the right track, just from committing to your marriage. It's a process of denying yourself.
Yes, that's so good, Brad.
And you build on those lessons in fatherhood and in parenthood in general. Am I right? You know what I mean? It's just a process of denying yourself, and you're already on the right track of it. So, I mean, like I said, potential fathers, don't be afraid. Live up to your innate ability and your innate proclivity to father. It's a thing.
Yeah, that act of stepping to build your own family, it starts with your spouse.
That's right.
And then right away, one of the things that shocked me, especially because we didn't live together in the same city until we were married, was like, oh my gosh, I don't just get to do what I want to do all the time. Like, I'm not the most important thing. And it is a good thing. But I'm saying, I have to consider your emotions and everything. I have to consider how this is going to impact you, every choice that I make.
That's right.
And we're going to make choices together because we are this unit now. Two have become one.
That's right.
By the Spirit. And then it was, I mean, just so like having a child now makes like, now it's like, there are two people ahead of me that I need to consider, let alone myself. And then, or three people ahead of you. Like,
that's right.
Now, that's not to say you need to still prioritize and take care of yourself and do things for you so you don't lose your sense of who you are. Because if you are, who you are will be the best person in your family, will be the best husband, the best father. Like, if you lose your sense of self, then I think you just kind of become a shell.
That's right.
Catering to everybody else. So I'm not saying it's not important to put time into yourself and be, I guess, really intentional about that. But ultimately, that is the 5% of my week. The other 95% is not putting myself first.
Yeah.
And looking out for my daughter.
That's right.
Looking out for my wife. And that I would say is that's not for me a default easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes I go and just like, well, what about me? Like, what do I ever get to do?
That's right.
And it's like, son, you're not a boy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're a man.
That's right.
And you're not the most important person in the world. Time to grow up. I mean, that might be a little like harsh on myself, but really it's like, that's like just killing my ego a little bit of being like, no,
that's right.
Your needs are not the most important the majority of the time anymore.
That's right. When I was
and
a
that's
boy,
okay.
I thought like a boy. When I was a man,
Yeah, and that's okay. And there's a lot of fulfillment that can come out of making sure that your child's needs are met.
Yeah.
And you're there emotionally for them and physically for them and for your wife. And I think that if you always focus on those things, I have found that it has become natural. The response from my wife, from my family, or just the people that I surround myself within is that like, I still get the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here now. I'm getting to sit with my friends, record, have these conversations. Like I still get plenty of time for me.
Yeah.
If I don't have to be defensive of it all the time.
That's right.
But
that's good. The concepts that God modeled for us in fatherhood, he also modeled for us in terms of how he relates to the church, the bride of Christ. So that husband role is just as important. I mean, you're going to need that to build, on that further stuff. So like, and luckily for us as believers, we have the model of both of those situations to kind of rely on. So
I wonder about like, a lot of people say I'll be a parent when I'm ready, or I'll get married when I'm ready. And from the sounds of it, you're never actually, you can expect you're never actually ready to your level of expected preparedness. But what do you think ready looks like?
I think that the same way that I would talk to somebody or a couple, like premarital counseling kind of thing of like, is that you need to know yourself so that you can know each other.
mm-hmm.
And I think that like you just take that a step further before you have kids. Of you need to have, I would recommend, not always possible because children can just happen sometimes. But
I mean, they don't just happen.
Right.
You did a thing, and then I
think. But I think that there's a knowing yourself, and then there's a knowing each other, and having that relationship, and understanding that. And I think a lot of times what that means is being able to be real with each other without having emotions play into it. Of being able to have real communication with you and your spouse.
Vulnerability. Yeah.
And emotions don't flare.
Yeah.
Because whether you're married and have kids or don't have kids or have 14 kids, there are going to be moments where everything seems like it's going perfectly. And there are going to be moments where everything seems like all hell is breaking loose. And there's going to be every moment in between. Right? But being able to communicate and trust your partner to work together to get through whatever that is, I think is, you could give a million different things. Well, you need to be financially this, and you need to have this, and you need to do that, and you need to do this. Listen, here's what I know, is that my parents raised 4 teenage boys with my dad making $41,000 a year. I don't know how he did it. It makes no sense mathematically to me currently. But what I do know is that there's like this cliche, I'm aware, like there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
I truly believe that you're going to figure out a lot of things, but before you can have that will to find a way, you need to have your foundation set. And if your foundation isn't set and there are cracks in it, that's where there are going to be issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well said.
That's good.
I'll ask one last question from me. If your child grows up, they could say one thing that you've taught them, that you want them to walk away with one thing from your parenting, what would you like that to be?
I guess it's more of a concept. And again, I spent about 13 years in law enforcement, and part of that time I spent in a school setting. And the one thing that I saw with it was an alternative school, so the kids that got kicked out of regular school came to my school, and we had a great staff there. It was a great time, but the one thing that I saw among most of the young men was a lack of competence, and I heard a pastor say it years later. Competence breeds confidence. Teach a kid to do something, and I promise you, they'll build on that. Confidence is bred from capability.
So good.
You know
So
what
good.
I mean? I mean,
It's so
just
good.
you guys are dads. You
Yeah.
know what I mean. And I wrote this down. Men have a tendency to massively overcompensate for the aspects of life that they lack. Women hide it. Men, you know what I mean? You guys know.
We peacock,
So,
baby.
yeah, but like women hide it, and they do a great job at hiding it. Men, we build up a big, giant, ornate,
Oh, man.
fancy wall, and we compensate for it. And that turns into a bunch of ugly stuff if you don't catch it early. So it's, we're all
Yes.
pretty young kids, and we're kind of on that level where we got to start catching that stuff early. A lack of a meaningful, healthy relationship modeled in a young man's life can lead him to force affection, to force love, and to force respect in relationships. If you don't catch that early, that turns into, a Netflix documentary. You know what I mean? So if there's anything I would do that I would want my son, when I'm gone, to take with him, is that I taught him something.
Yeah.
I want to teach that man to fish.
Yeah.
That's a little man that's a man in a little boy's body. I want to teach him how to do the things that, number one, that I know how to do, and the stuff that I wish my dad taught me how to do.
Yeah.
So again, competence breeds confidence.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I want my
That's so
I want my kids to know they're loved.
Yeah.
That's it. Above, I like everything you said is great and amazing, and I don't disagree with any of it at all. Like for me personally, like it's just I want them to know that they're loved. Because like our age group in America has one of the highest rates of suicide in the world. Like our demographic, male, 30s, 40s, some of the highest suicide rates in the world. And I think that we as men put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I think we put a lot of stress on ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that we do have innate things to, particularly as you get into a relationship, particularly as you start to have children, this innate thing to provide for, this innate thing to like provide security for, whatever that looks like. I think that can look, it could be physical security, but can also be emotional. Like can be security doesn't just
general
mean,
provision.
right?
Yeah.
And I think we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I think it's also very easy for males in particular to have this mindset of like, it's me against the world. And I know I've had that thought several times throughout my life of like, it's me against everybody. And like in those moments, most of the time, thankfully, it was like, all right, let's go. Like, let's see what everybody else has. Because I'm going to push, right? But I don't want my children to ever have a moment, whether they're 3 or 10 or 16 or 45, where they don't know that they are absolutely unconditionally loved. Because I think that just that, if they always and forever know that, I think that can have a massive impact on the trajectory of their lives.
It's a baseline.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of we're always here. We will always love you. And they're going to live their own lives.
Yeah.
They're not going to do everything I want them to do. They're going to make plenty of the same mistakes I made.
That's right.
and I'm well aware of it. And I can tell you that I'm prepared for it, but I'm probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And but it doesn't matter because I love them and they're my sons. So
That's right.
Gonna be
That's
here.
good. That's good.
Teach them the best I can.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective is for a little girl, but I think it would apply across the board. I think I most want her to know that she was prayed for before she was anything. We prayed nightly for her, and she has continued to be prayed for every night. And the why that's important is not the, I guess, necessarily like the spiritual implications of it, but the reason she was prayed for is because she is so valued.
Yeah.
And I want her to know how much value she has, because if she believes that about herself, she will require that from others, and she will not be treated as if she doesn't have value. So I hope that that's the thing that she, through all that, if I can impart, and I hope that I will try to do that to my son, although it might be colored a little differently too. But like for her specifically, for a little girl, I want her to walk away knowing that she has value. She was prayed for. She was asked for. She has a place here. And I kind of end that prayer all the time with, I believe that she'll be known for her kindness, and that she'll teach me a new way to be kind to others and to my wife. That's my heart for her.
That's good.
I'm so scared of having a daughter, dude.
I'm terrified of having a little boy, dude. Actually, no, I'm like, part of me also like Ruby. We're into Kung Fu Panda right now, and we're fighting like karate. She's doing panda all the time, and I can't wait to actually do that with the little boy, because I've seen you guys toss your boys around like go through, and I'm ready to like get in it with a little meat muscle. But
dude, Aussie has taken it. If you lay down on the ground and you're like wrestling with him, Aussie will like, he will run and jump knees first. Oh yeah, and like he's going for pain.
She's trying to make her pain. I know you rule with Aussie now. Put your chin down and you're ready, because you're gonna catch one and you don't want to have it up.
Marshall's a 2-fist guy, and he'll jump as high as he can and boom, right 2 fists, right
one
in his
punch
liver.
Maximum pain. Double punch.
Goodness.
I'm so scared of having a girl though. Yeah. I think like having boys too, of where like my boys, I very much live on the line of like, there are guardrails, but like F around and find out with my boys. Like
mess around later.
It is what it is, you know?
Get down, lay down.
That's right. That's right.
And I am legitimately afraid of having a girl and like boxing her in, holding her so close and never, ever letting her go. And because if somebody scuffs her shoe, I will beat somebody, dude.
It is. This will be like a little too real, but it's like such a weird test for me. Like mentally, I get in this mind kind of effing of myself, because I'm around all my friends that have little boys, and I'm like, am I a little just too jumpy around Rue? But I can't help but like being like, I don't want something. I can't also like the natural dad in me. The other week we came over, and Austin and they're like, "Go, let's go play." And Ruby's down there, and they're like jumping on, like, cause they're all play fighting. Ruby's like, and then they're all running around with the ball. And every now and then I'm like, "Hey guys, be careful, Ruby. We can do this thing." But like, Ozzy one time didn't mean to, but he like checks Ruby, and Ruby falls over. And I'm telling you, I didn't think about anything at all. I went right down, grabbed his little ankle, flipped him up on his butt. I was like, "You need to be careful." I told Abby on the ride home, I was like, I think I need to go to therapy, because I had this just reaction where it was like, "No, sir." Why? And she's like, "Why would you do that?" I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "I just feel like he needs to know that there's always going to be somebody bigger than him, and he's got to be careful when there's other people around." And I was like, and she was like, "That's not your place to teach him that." I was like, "I know." And it's like, I can't help it.
There's three. I'm going to give you 3 things with us. First off, if he continues his growth rate, one day he will be bigger than all of us.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, that's a problem.
By the time he's 12, I already got my hands full.
Right. Yeah. Right. 2, I actually genuinely do believe that Aussie now currently understands who he can be rough with and who he can't be rough with.
He's so sweet with her.
Yeah.
He's so sweet with her.
Much different around like Drake.
Yeah.
Like playing with him, they beat each other up.
Right.
But he will play with
Oh,
Ruby.
he's so sweet to her. Yes.
And unless he does it
It
accidentally.
was accident.
Right?
It was not.
Yeah.
Then he does have that
He's-
understanding.
For sure,
he's
he
a
does.
good boy.
I'm not
And-
saying I was right by ankle
and-
shooting the boy.
And 3, dude.
But watch it.
But
3, he messed around.
He
laid
messed
around, dude. He messed around. He laid around.
I gave him guardrails. I said, "Hey, careful,
Dude.
careful." Oh
Mm-mm.
man, he's the sweetest kid though. He is the way he is. I would say Marshall too. And then like they're all. I'm very fortunate to have like little boys in my little girl's life because like she's like growing up with like a very core group of
Oh,
young
yeah.
men
She'll
that
be
like
well
really
taken
care about
care
her,
of.
and like that's going to be necessary. I'll sleep better knowing that like someday that Ossie's 2 grades above her when she's a junior
When he's
or
a
sophomore, he's a
linebacker.
senior, and
Yeah.
being like, "Don't, Ossie will come get you.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't do it."
Right. Until they're dating each other, then you're gonna have a problem.
Oh boy.
Well, we're praying. We're praying for my heart to be softened, and
Dude,
I
I'm
don't know.
praying for
actually, I would love. We could be.
I'm
We'll be
praying for a
family for real.
banging wedding.
Think about that
dude.
wedding,
We'll
dude.
throw a dope
Lights
wedding.
out, bro.
Are you kidding me?
Oh boy.
One of you two boys.
If
is-
this happens, if that happens one day, this piece of the podcast will be cut out and played. at the wedding.
Oh man.
That's now it'd be like, let's dance.
Right.
Man, well, good stuff. Thank you, Brennan, for coming on and
Yeah.
sharing your perspective and being a part of this conversation. Really, more than anything, like is good.
Yeah,
It's
this was again an honor for me. It's speaking these things and actually talking about it with other guys, because we don't do that naturally as men. This conversation has been really beneficial to me. So again, thank you for your platform. Thank you for what you guys do. You're changing lives. You may never meet the people you change, but you guys are doing good work. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, man.
We'll talk again.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
It's super healthy for me to be around both of you because I feel
Yeah.
like you guys were bringing up scripture references about why you're a dad, and I'm just like, yo, I'm a dad. So no,
He's
but
out here.
appreciate you guys. For sure. Love you, man.